Well, we've reached the final stop on a long and winding track and field journey, the 2024 season coming to a close, and so pleased to be joined by Morgan Campbell to tie a bow on all of it for us in a very nice, easy, simple way, right, Morgan? We've got a lot of ground to cover here, so it's a simple question with, like I said, a long and winding answer, but maybe just very high level. What comes to mind when I ask you to sum up the 2024 athletic season?
Yeah, it's funny. Like in the notes to this show, we were discussing whether or not Canada is now a throwing nation, and I hesitate to characterize it that way only because one, it sort of takes credit away from the individuals because it's not like there's this machine that spits out throwers. It's a bunch of individuals that have reached the top of their game, and the top of their game is also the top of the world. And also, it as happens in this country because our population is not huge. It's not like the United States. The United States has 10 times more people than Canada. There's a lot more people to throw at this problem. So the bigger point is what we have here in Canada is a cohort of world-class throwers. But that doesn't guarantee that 4 years from now, there's going to be four more people just as good as Katzberger, just as good as Cameron Rogers. And again, what I would like for casual fans and the hardcore fans to do is just appreciate the people at the top right now for what they're accomplishing right now without worrying about whether or not Canada is a throwing nation. Because there are people at Athletics Canada whose job is to figure out how to keep that pipeline full.
But Morgan, it's a great headline. Listen, talk about appreciating people. Sarah Mitten, of course, from Brooklyn, Nova Scotia. She's back home, and we had a chance to catch up with her upon arrival after what has been a wicked season for her. A couple of thoughts from Sarah.
I think obviously there's such a big emphasis on the Olympics, and even for like myself as an athlete, like wanting to do so well and putting all of that on ourselves. But there's so much more to the track season than just that. And so after the games, I remember thinking like, I'm a little disappointed it's not how I wanted it to go. But if I sit here and kind of dwell in that and sit in the stink, then I'm going to miss out on all these other opportunities that are ahead of me. And so, yeah, I took some time to, grieve and deal with what had just happened at the games, but it was right back on the horse, two competitions a couple days later, and then another Diamond League, and back home for some kind of solo training, which was hard mentally to stay motivated, but I just knew like I wanted to finish the season on a high note.
So we heard from Sarah. That's from some of the throwers, individual throwers. Morgan, as you point out, what'll be fascinating to track is whether or not the shine of the Olympic success, the international success, will actually build a system which helps produce Canada to be a greater throwing nation. To the track now, where we saw some breakout performances, names that jump out to me, Audrey Leblanc and Christopher Morales-Williams. So why don't we start with Audrey and some thoughts on her and how she uses this season to build into the future, Morgan.
What Audrey Leduc did for herself this season was just put herself in the conversation, put herself among the list of names that gets calls to compete at big time meets. Now, she's taken between 2023 and 2024, she took a half a second nearly off of her 100-meter personal best, ran another national record at the Olympics, 10:95. And so we as fans cannot realistically expect the next jump to be anywhere near as big. You take that first half second off, which is almost unheard of for grown-ups, right? You see high school students that do that because in grade 9, they're 5'2". In grade 10, they're 5'9". They're still growing. Things like that happen. But amongst adults, that's nearly unheard of. And so for Canadian track fans, I just hope we don't hold her to a set of unrealistic expectations and expect her to run 11:4 one year or 11:38 and then 10:95 the next year and then say, well, according to my calculations, you should be at 10:45 next year. Like that is unrealistic. Like from here, you get a few hundredths at a time and that's where you make your progress, because the progress she has made between last year and this year is stunning. And what she does too for Canada is again helps put the women's relay team on the map, helps put the women's relay team in contention. They made the Olympic final this year. Like that rarely happens for Canada.
Christopher Morales-Williams, Morgan, he was exhausted by the time he got to the Olympics. He talked about it. He talked about it at the trials, makes it to the semifinal. An unforgettable year for so many reasons. But he was so bold to say in the wake of his Olympic experience that in 4 years, he's going to break the world record. He's going to win gold in LA, all of these proclamations. It seems like the sky's the limit for Christopher Morales-Williams. What are you going to be looking for from him as he moves forward in his career?
It's funny. And part of it, too, is that we like Christopher Morales-Williams because those same proclamations from an athlete that we don't like.
Right.
We call them arrogant. We call
Right.
it bragging. You haven't accomplished this yet. What makes you think you can do this? But as a world-class athlete, you have to think that way. You talk to anybody in the Olympics, they're not running for last place. They're not running to do okay. They're running to do the best they can. And if you don't believe the best you can is also amongst the best of all time, then why are you out there? And just stop running after high school if that's your attitude. So this is exactly how he has to think going into the next phase of his career. And so for Morales-Williams, I'm really interested to see how well he can do when he can plan out a season that is designed to peak at the races that mean the most for professionals, as opposed to peaking at the races that mean the most for his college team, and then sort of seeing what's left over for the pro season. So this is a really exciting time for Christopher Morales-Williams.
Quick thought on Marco, because the men's 800 meter this year was as riveting as any race in the field. And then the experience of the Canadian men's 4x100 meter team, because they did it, Morgan. We haven't had a chance to talk about this, but they did it. They, in some ways, stunned the world, and in many cases, in their inner circle, they did what they always thought they could do.
Yeah, well, first let's talk Marco. The men's 800 is a fascinating race, and we're now finding, like, 12 years post David Rudisha, we are talking about threats to David Rudisha's world record, but at the same time, you see why that world record is as special as it is. Even in the Diamond League final, when Arop was leading for 650 meters of that race, and the look on his face, he felt good. He was keeping up with the wave lights. The world record was under threat, but you hit that point at about 150 meters from the finish, you can see his expression change. And it came down on him how difficult it is to run that fast for that long. And this is a professional. This is somebody that does it for a living, right? So for regular folks, I hope you guys understand, this is not a failing of any of these athletes. That's just how hard it is to do what they do. You have a group of people who are all capable of running, in the 141s. And any given day, it's very difficult to handicap which one of them is actually going to make that happen.
On the men's relay, to set you up a little bit more for it,
yeah.
None of these guys individually had a great season.
No.
Specifically at the Olympics, but they pulled it together when it mattered most. All of that to say, let's revel in the gold for a minute, but also let's look forward. How much longer do you think they can be competitive as a quartet?
The time I spent with Andre in January, we had a lot of long talks about the difference between, like, recovering from effort when you're 21 versus when you're 29. And he's like, yeah, it's very different. And so for them to get it together in the final from lane 9,
yeah,
8,
wherever they were,
whatever
they
the
were
further
way out there.
Yes, but it is a testament to experience and continuity. Go back and watch that final. That first exchange between Aaron Brown and Jerome Blake, most other relay teams in the world, that exchange is a disaster, because there was a bit of a missed exchange where Brown kind of waved the baton past Blake's hand, and Blake had to double clutch at it. Point is, those two have run together. They've practiced together, and not just practiced together, but had to execute in competition together so many times over the years. Each of them sort of knows what to do with the other when there's like a millisecond of disconnect. Whereas with a lot of other teams where you don't have that kind of continuity, you don't have the two guys thinking with one brain, that's where stuff goes haywire. And they got that exchange right, and the rest of the exchanges went very smoothly. Whatever glitches Andre and Brendan had in the first round, they ironed them out. And again, the relays, it's about raw speed, but if it was only ever about raw speed, the United States would win every year. It's not just about raw speed. It's about continuity, chemistry, execution. And this is what Canada's advantage has been over the years. And this is what allows them to run really well as a group, even during a season when, as individuals, people might not be as sharp as we're used to seeing them.
Gold medal to you, Morgan. This was fun, an incredible season. I can't wait for next season. And thank you for this all season.
Thank you for letting me spout the hottest of my hot takes, and for being such an incredible sparring partner.